Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the October 1st regular meeting of Council, and it will be the last meeting of this Council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory, upon which we gather with gratitude. First item on the agenda tonight are the minutes of the Council meeting held September 17th, 2018. I need a mover and a seconder to adopt. Moved by Councillor Salter, seconded by Councillor Burton. Are there any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. The next item is the minutes of the public hearing held September 17, 2018. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Beale. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. The next item I have is the adoption of the minutes of the special council meeting held September 24th, 2018. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Powell. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. And finally, for tonight, I need an approval of tonight's agenda for October the 1st. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Salter, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Are there any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Does any member of council have any new business? I'm going to start with Councillor Burton.
I have no new business, but as this is our last meeting together.
I was going to do that at the end.
Were you?
Do you want to do it now?
No, I'm happy to do it at the end.
All right, thank you. Councillor Salter.
I don't have much for new business. I did receive some information from the community gardens about some changes that occurred with regard to agriculture. But I didn't actually get the PDF, so I wasn't able to actually get all of that information. But from the sounds of it, we've moved forward from where we were. So I know that there's some changes going on with regard to meat production and so on. So I believe that's what's changed as far as agriculture goes. But I don't know all the details.
Councillor Beale.
Thank you very much. I do have a couple of items. First of all, I did attend a meeting of the Vancouver Island Regional Library just quite recently, and the new budget has been adopted and it was agreed to unanimously by the board. It does mean an increase in funds for the library to the tune of approximately $1.48. That's an average per capita, and some regions actually will be a little bit less, and I expect that ours will actually be a little bit less than that. I also know that I understand that in the fairly near future there will be work done in the library. The flooring has been slated for some upgrading for some time, for a couple of years now, and I believe that is coming relatively soon, but I don't have those specifics either. Also, on a different note, October 15th to 29th is Go By Bike time. So I think that's actually, this time, is it 2 weeks? Oh, 2 weeks. So that's really great. So gobybike.oceanside, and if you'd like to sign up, ride your bike even a little bit, you could have an opportunity to win a trip for two to Italy, or one of 3 bikes and lots of great bike gear. So you can enter online for free and log your ride, and it can be as an individual or as part of a team. So keep an eye out as well for some advertisements promoting this. Just a fun event, and hopefully it won't be raining the whole time.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did attend the Parksville Downtown Business Association meeting, and they are full bore. They're going into the Paulapalooza again this year. They're also planning for their Christmas, the light up. And I don't know if people remember last year, the big sequoia tree had colored lights on it, looked much better. Anyways, every year they try to make it a bigger and better event, so look forward to that. They've already started working on it.
Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have no items of new business.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I don't have any at this time.
Okay, I have just a few items. First of all, I attended a week ago Sunday the memorial for Faye Smith Rosenblatt, and it was a very dignified meeting on the beach at Qualicum Beach. They have a new gazebo and a lot of information, a lot of signage for information about the ocean, and it was a fitting tribute to Faye. Faye, for those of you who knew her, was a great lady, and I think we all miss her quite a bit. On the same evening, I was invited for the 25th anniversary of the Parksville Qualicum Elks Lodge, and had a supper and entertaining. And the ladies, I don't know if any of the ladies are here, the ladies were very entertaining. And this is all part in good fun, and it was a wonderful evening. And I want to thank the Elks, not only for the invitation, for all the good work that they do in the community, especially in supporting students with grants and bursaries and that sort of thing. And then last week on Wednesday night, I believe it was Wednesday night, I went to the Forward House dinner at the Bayside, and that also was a very nice event, very well attended by one and all. And again, Forward House is an organization that does a lot of great work in the community. Okay, Council, we have one delegation tonight, and it's the Parksville Community and Conference Center. We have Ms. Parker and Ms. Paine. Come on up and turn the microphone on. We have one more. We've got. I think we've got everything. I think no. Oh, okay.
So thank you for letting the Parksville Community and Conference Center present their budget tonight, and President Holly Hepner is handing out the operating agreement. My name is Lisa Paine, and the rest of the board is here. Our President Holly Hepner, our Secretary Irene Holland, and two other board members, Lisa M., not going to try and pronounce her last name, and Sue Hodges. Right? And I would just like to start. Evelyn Parker, our bookkeeper, is going to be presenting the budget, but I'd like to take this moment to thank council and city staff for all of their work and helping us with the community center. It's been somewhat of a different year compared to other years, and we just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you publicly. Thank you.
It would be boring if every year was the same.
Over to you, Evelyn.
So I'm just going to go through the major subtotals on the budget and then open the floor to questions. For 2019, we've budgeted slightly less for facility rentals. I noticed in the past when preparing the 2019 budget that a few of the room rentals were continually overstated in the budgeted amounts. So in the interest of presenting more reasonable figures, I've budgeted more in line with the actual growth over the last few years, and the actual growth has not been what was projected, and so that number has decreased by a small margin for 2019. The same goes for our other rentals and charges. I'd noticed in past years that we had budgeted large amounts for special events, and when looking through the bookkeeping data, had realized that this was inconsistent. It was pretty hard to predict when special events would occur. And also I noted that for the rest of 2018, up until the end of December, we have at this point no additional special events booked, so it seemed reasonable to omit this from the budget, which significantly decreased our other rentals and charges line, resulting in a net decrease for predicted 2019 budget revenues. And that's the 412 versus for 2018 down to 394,300 for 2019. That's the rationale behind that. For 2019 in the expense category, we have the board has decided to enlist the help of a bookkeeper. Given the past year's events, a division of duties was deemed necessary and prudent, so that's been added to the budget. This number is based on the expenditures from May of 2018 when I was first hired as the bookkeeper. Our 2019 budgeted accounting / audit is based on the actual bill, so that was an easy one. Looking at the past 5 years for legal fees, prior to the 2017 year, there were no legal fees, and given that most legal events that we have experienced and predicted, we don't anticipate it to continue, was the rationale behind decreasing the legal fees expense for 2019. Many of the administrative and overhead expenditures, the 2019 budgeted amounts were based on actuals for 2018 or a slight increase. My benchmark was about 2%, given that with the new collective agreement for QP employees, we're anticipating a 2% increase in wages expense, and right now we do not have a strategic plan in place, but when we do, the preliminary plan is to align the fee increase 2% with the wage increase. Items of note may be computer system maintenance that had been grossly overstated for years and years, and so I've taken the liberty of decreasing the predicted amount for that expense. Nothing else. And postage was the other one. Postage was overstated for the past 4 years, so I didn't see a point in continuing with that trend. I can't hear you. Oh, also with professional development, and the same trend. Moving on to advertising and promotion, from what I do know about the preliminary discussions regarding the strategic plan, we hope to spend less on just plain advertising, straightforward advertising, and more on marketing and really getting out in the community and increasing our presence. So you'll see a shift in the budget away from the advertising and promotion towards business development. You'll also note a decrease in website design. This was a large expenditure from our current year, and because it was a complete revamp of the website, we don't anticipate this to be an annual expense. Maybe we would revisit that in a couple years, but it's looking really good now, so no anticipated changes there. Not much. Insurance changes very little from year to year, so there was no change in that for the budget. I took the liberty of reducing kitchen supplies expense. It was significantly lower for the prior year, or for the current year, so continued that for 2019. I did, however, increase our expected expense for kitchen equipment, repairs and maintenance of such equipment, as it is aging. We haven't purchased anything new in a few years, so and no changes to the license. The utilities, my figures were based on the actuals for 2018 and what I predicted the prorated expense would be to the end of the year. No changes were made in that area. Moving on to page 3, for special events, naturally no expense there, as we decided that the revenue for special events was unpredictable and omitted that revenue line, so the corresponding expense line has also been omitted. The rest of the expenses directly related to other revenues have decreased slightly just because the other revenues decreased slightly. This was in line with my initial thoughts of budgeting for more predictable numbers based on actual history rather than lofty goals. Our repairs and maintenance, an increase was budgeted for repairs and maintenance of the building, just consistent with an aging building with an aging HVAC system. And because we were spending significantly less on janitorial supplies, that decreased for 2019. The wage increases, the expense in wage increases across the board were consistent with the 2% wage increase that's in the collective agreement for QP employees. And that concludes the predicted 2019 budget showing a balance, showing it's balanced.
Thank you. Members of council, questions for the delegation? Well, I'll start off, if I may. Too slow. I noticed under website design, there's a lot of zeros, but you're spending money on website design. That's under advertising and administration and overhead. Advertising and promotion. Well, I have it on the first page.
Are you referring to the 9,000 actual? Yes, that was a revamp of our website. That was in the current year. And we don't expect to spend that large amount every year.
Okay. And my next question is the cost of hydro, which is stays at about $13,000 a year, and yet hydro is going up. One of the things that I had discussed with the director of engineering, and we didn't pursue it that much, but looking at the possibility of getting solar heating. I mean, it would be a one-time shot to get the proper solar panels, and after that, the building would pretty much. I don't know what the payback period would be, but that was my only observation, that given the cost of hydro going up over the years, might be something, doing a cost-benefit analysis, looking at it. Councillor Burton.
Thanks for your frankness in your presentation. I appreciate you advising us of the adjustments that you've been making, although I'm still looking at your revenue streams and wondering, do you have bookings through to the end of 2018 that are going to see you realize that budget number?
From what I've gathered talking to the event coordination staff, that we're entering quite a busy period of the year, the last 3 months of the year, and so I'm comfortable predicting meeting those goals.
Okay. This is the third budget I've seen from the Parksville Community Center that hasn't met its targets, so I'm hoping for you, but we'll wait and see.
Thank you.
I think that's it for now.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Worship. And so just to go back to the revenue for the Red Cedars Maples rental, and it was $24,000 in the budget. So far, we've only got $12,197, and yet you're predicting $21,000 for the next year. Is there monies owing in that for that rental, or how did you get the 21?
If there were monies owing, they'd be reflected in that 12,000. Like I said, just talking to PC staff, we are entering a very busy time of year, so I considered that for the next 3 months we'd probably add a third to that, so it would be close.
I'm going to go back to Councillor Patterson. I'm going to go back to Councillor Burton after.
Thank you, Worship. And thank you very much for your presentation. So just a clarification on the special events that you removed from going forward into the 2019 budget, and that there isn't any funds or anything in the 2018. What would you consider a special event, and why would it be removed?
What I can tell, the one example of a special event is the Chamber Gala event, and it was not booked with us for this year, so to the best of my knowledge. Oh, then it must be under facility rental or seaside hall rental.
Oh, Councillor Patterson, okay. Councillor Burton.
So we're seeing your budget. Can you tell me about your current situation? We don't have a balance sheet here. What's your cash on hand? What are your receivables? I'm still seeing you asking for $246,500 from the city, and that's my concern. That hasn't changed. It hasn't gone. We had hoped this year was going to be more successful than last year, and that we would see a small decrease in that request from the city to match your losses.
Right now, our bank balance is approximately $112,000. My last financial report was given as of August 31st. So that was from that day. Our receivables are in a negative position right now because we have more deposits owing to organizations that have made deposits on future events than actual receivables. Our receivables are within a manageable amount. It's not a large amount. We watch closely for receivable items in the 91 plus category and follow up with them.
Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Worship. And first of all, would like to say thank you for the presentation and also for a very readable budget report. It made it really nice to be able to compare, and everything lines up, and so thank you for that. And I too was wondering a little bit about special events as opposed to, wouldn't it be either some sort of facility rental, and is it maybe just a problem with the term? But anyway, that was just an observation that what would it be rather than full rental or partial rental or something like that. But I do want to say thank you. And I did have the opportunity to sit in on a couple of meetings when Councillor Oates was unavailable, so I was able to see some of this moving forward before this point, which really made it easy to understand. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I also want to thank you for the budget and for your presentation. And I also want to just make a quick comment, which is I understand that you guys have had a difficult year, and you've kind of gone through the fire, and you've been herding cats. So I think you've done a really good job, all things considered.
Thank you.
Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you for the budget and the frankness and the openness with respect to the budget. I too hope that you hit your goals, but it hasn't happened yet. I would like to make a motion, Your Worship. I move that the 2019 annual budget and financial plan for the years 2019 to 2023 as presented by the Parksville Community and Conference Center Society be approved.
Seconded by Councillor Salter. Discussion on that motion. Councillor Burton.
Given the history and the fact that we received this document at 2 o'clock this afternoon, and I haven't had an opportunity to go through it in any kind of detail, I'd like to defer this to the next meeting.
There are no next meetings.
There's a meeting on November the 17th, and I'd like to defer this.
Oh, okay. You want to defer it to November the 17th? That's fine.
19th? Sorry.
19th, okay. Seconded by Councillor Powell. Pardon me? There's no debate, I know. It's a referral. Okay. Councillor Oates, do you have any other items? Okay. Did we vote on deferring? We do, yes. Okay, all those in favor of deferring? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Do you have any other items regarding the agreement? No?
Thank you, Worship. I would have, but it would probably suffer the same fate, so I'll leave it for somebody else to pick up.
Well, thanks very much. I know that it's been a hectic year, and thank you all for all that you do, and thanks to the rest of the members of your board. It's not easy sometimes, but that's what we get paid the big bucks for. Okay. Thanks again. And where's your chair? She's in the audience tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hi.
Yes. Here, one more item.
Sure.
Our operation agreement expires this year, and we were hoping to renew for another 2 years. It's the exact same contract. Everything's the same. Nothing's changed other than the signing date, which is in front of you. So we're hoping to renew for another 2 years.
Councilor Oates.
Thank you, Worship. I'll give it a go. I move that the operating agreement with the Parksville Community Center Society be renewed for a further 2-year period commencing January 1, 2019 to December 31st, 2020.
Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councilor Salter. Discussion on that motion. Councilor Burden.
Yeah, same comments. I don't think we can enter into a 2-year agreement without first going through the budget very carefully and clearly, and I would make a motion to defer this to the November 19th meeting.
Do I have a seconder to defer? No. Councilor Salter. Councilor Salter, you want
I'd like
to
to speak to that.
We have a seconder? Okay. Councilor Salter. Once again, members of council, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor of deferring to November, what is the date again? 19th. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. All right. So what do I do now?
I'd like to speak to the original motion, Your Worship. Given that there is some certainty with respect to the community center with their staffing and the collective agreement that they've signed there, and that the only changes to this agreement would be the dates, and that any future councils that would have any issue with this do have the option of providing a 90-day notice and getting out of the agreement. I don't see any problem with why we shouldn't be supporting this here tonight. There's nothing new in the operating agreement that would be impacted by the budget.
I don't think anybody's going anywhere, so, and we know where you live, so. Okay. All right. So that's passed, and we're moving on. No. Pardon me? Oh, I thought we did. Only the other referral. Okay, now we're voting on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's a real nonprofit organization. Okay. Council, we have a report this evening from Mr. Aaron Dawson, who is going to give us an emergency program update and watching what's been going on in Indonesia and all these other places, like Hurricane Florence. Let's hear about our emergency program update. Mr. Dawson, go ahead. Turn the microphone on, please.
Can still do this. Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Council, thank you for giving me a bit of time to talk to you. Even though it's your last meeting, I did want to give you an update on what we've done in the last few months. There, quite quickly, who we are now, what we've done, what we're doing, and what we're going to do. So I like that little picture because that's kind of my face over how things have been changing. John Wilson is no longer with the Regional District of Nanaimo. Catherine Morrison is the new manager. She started, I believe, 3 weeks ago. So we are continuing to work and blend and try to keep a regional approach to emergency management happening, which has been working really well for us. So what have we done? Since we talked last, I think at the beginning of April, we had our annual expo at the end of April. And because this council has been supportive with the budget and the things we've tried to do, we were able to offer the expo up free of charge for residents to come and attend, and we had over 1,000 people show up. It was our biggest expo ever, and we feel that we are reaching out, we are getting our message across to the public about how important preparedness is. In May, we had our second sweeper exercise, our radio connectivity exercise. And after this exercise this time, we actually got the province to understand why we're doing it, because there is no program in place at the provincial level to look after all the small local governments. So by working together as Vancouver Island and some of our partners even in the Lower Mainland, we started to identify those radio pathways that we can all use when all the other forms of communications go down. So that's another big success for us. Emergency Preparedness Week in May, we spilled that over from the expo. We had a lot of people visit us at our different setups and say, hey, we saw you at the expo. We loved it. We picked up more material. And as a result, a lot of people came to us and asked us to do presentations to their stratas, some of their neighborhoods, good things like that. So it's been growing. It's been expanding. And that's because you've supported us. Where else am I? So in that sense that we continue to become a respected program and our knowledge base is growing, the province still turns to us, and they did in the spring when the freshet happened, and they asked Chris to deploy to Kamloops. So Chris went in, got more experience, and helped the province deal with the flooded people in the interior. Because that went on so long, I also got deployed after Chris did to do the same job that Chris was doing again, because they need that support, they need those trained people, and they know that we've developed a good program. So they called us again, and I went along. Later in the summer, we appreciated our volunteers. Our volunteers are the core of our program. We have a huge volunteer core now, and they need to know that we appreciate them. I apologize to council. 2 years in a row, we have booked that barbecue on a council meeting day. Yes, I know we're going to do better next year. We did have Councillor Patterson come out. Thank you very much for showing up. The volunteers appreciated that. They really did. We have started working with the regional district and the town of Qualicum Beach on a new hazard risk vulnerability assessment, or HRVA. That's a really important cornerstone of our program, of any emergency program. Once you've identified all of your hazards, you can determine what the consequences of those hazards are, and those consequences are where you build plans around to recover from that hazard coming into effect. And then we can also look at vulnerabilities. And vulnerabilities are where we can work with other departments and other stakeholders to mitigate some of the things, perhaps like a pipe in the ground. And we can identify that it's an old pipe and it's subject to perhaps that hazard, particular hazard, and we can look at when it can be replaced, so that we have less time as a result where we don't have services that we can provide our residents when something happens. Let's see, where did I go? Okay. Excuse me. So again, we're fortunate to be a respected program. The fires started up this year. Chris got deployed to Terrace. He was the ESS specialist for the northwest part of the province, and his help was very much appreciated. The province has said many times how grateful they are that they can lean on us, and that's because you guys support us. They had asked me to deploy as well. I opted not to. I resisted as long as I could, and the reason that I resisted is we had unprecedented fires here on the island. So we as emergency coordinators on the island, we all worked together to make sure that our peers on the northern half of the island knew we were there for them, that we had supplies, that we had resources that we could send them should they need it. Thankfully, most of the fires stayed in uninhabited areas, so it wasn't as bad as it could have been. So that's what we did. What are we doing? Well, we do appreciate that this council supported our grant application for a pet trailer. It's a really important piece for us. We identified that, as explained to you when we came to you the first time on it, that from our apartment fire, pets became our biggest issue. And pets are family members. So as a result of that, getting this pet trailer, which should arrive, I'm sorry, Kiva, do you remember what I said to you about 3 weeks from now? About 3 weeks from now, that'll be the first pet trailer on the island, and a lot of local governments are watching to see and will be coming to have a look. So thank you for supporting that. We are having our first HRVA stakeholder meetings next week, the 10th and the 11th of October. That's going to start that process rolling. We have about 70 stakeholders, all the different first responder groups, all the different service groups, utility groups, just about every line of business you can think of is going to be coming to these meetings because we want it to be as complete a document as possible. Yes?
Just because we have so many people in the audience and acronyms are my downfall at times.
Sure.
HRVA.
Hazard Risk Vulnerability Assessment. Thanks, Teresa. Council, you've also been great in supporting us and allowing us to have the vehicle, the Assistant Fire Chief's vehicle, as opposed to trading it in. We're taking that over. That's a really important step. Chief Norris has been great in making room for us in terms of always, I'm an email away from, Mark, could you please help us move this trailer yet again? And I know it takes away from their daily work to do that. So this makes us more efficient and effective on both sides. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I should see that vehicle in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We heard this council loud and clear on not being able to release an emergency plan to the public. When I brought that up to my peers on Vancouver Island, I found out that many of them were having the same problems. So as the Mid-Island Emergency Coordinators and Managers, the MIECM, we took it upon ourselves to redo that plan. We've completed that plan. That is in a report to you after my presentation. That is something that's releasable now to the public. It's a living, breathing document. It will always change. When we get the results from our hazard risk vulnerability assessment, those will be incorporated into the plan. That will be public information. The public, I hope, will be able to learn from that, and if nothing else, they can ask questions from that, and we'll all be better off for it. We'll all be better prepared. Let's see, where else can I go? We're also looking at a standalone website for the whole region that would make one-stop shopping for all residents. Instead of going to one local government website or another, you can go to hopefully this one website. The plan will be there as well. We're also looking at another grant application. We may have to wait till the next stream. However, there are more grant applications out there, and the next gap in our system is what to do with multiple residents when they're displaced and there's nowhere else to go. So we're talking about group lodging supplies. But we'll come back to council at that time when we're ready for that. So what are we going to do? Well, I put subject to the weather. And it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but at the same time it's serious because we've noticed in the last 3, 4, 5 years that there's not a whole lot of downtime anymore. We seem to go from winter weather, winter rain events and flooding and landslides and good things like that, right into freshet season when there's more water because the snow melts, and then right into fire season. So all things being equal, we're hoping to continue working on that list. Some of those things I've already talked about, but there's a couple of important things in there where we need to start working on a new volunteer resource agreement. That's the funding for our volunteer groups and our volunteer coordinator. That expires at the end of 2019, so that we need to start the negotiation process for that. And the emergency management agreement also expires next year, and that involves 7 local governments in this area, including First Nations. So we need to sit down, we need to put a lot of effort into those things to get them right moving forward, and hopefully the weather allows us to do that. Did I go right there? Look at that, I did. I do want to say one more time, I've said it a few times as we go here, we as a group of coordinators really, really appreciate the support we've had from you, even if you were telling us that we needed to do things like the emergency plan. It was the right thing to tell us, and we've done that. We are better off. The citizens, the residents are better off. We have a respected program, and that's because you've supported us. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to, before we go to questions, the reporting on the Nanaimo Lakes fires were terrific. We were getting reports on a daily basis, and it kept everybody up to speed and gave us what we needed to know. So that was a really bonus. Councillor Powell, Councillor Salter, Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Worship. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for your presentation. I remember when I first started on council, and we had a meeting similar to like ESS, and it was a bunch of people meeting in this room, not knowing what their role was or why they were here. And then as time progressed and you were doing it off the side of your desk, and then I think it was a 0.5 position. And then I went to the UBCM and they talked about disasters, and the provincial government had no plan. There wasn't a plan anywhere. And so to see how far we've come and that people are using our emergency safety in their districts, they're taking you there to learn from you. There's not enough that I can say thank you for. Like, this is amazing, and I just want to say that to you. You've done a fabulous job, and I know it's been a lot of work, so thank you very much.
Councillor Salter.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. I'm really happy to hear that there is an emergency plan now, and so I'm looking forward to reading that. I know we talked a lot in there, and glad we got here. You're right about the emergency housing for displaced people. That is a really big issue, and I'm not sure that even council is aware of what a big issue that is, and especially for folks who are displaced, because they have nowhere to go after 3 days of emergency money. So I would really like to see something happen, even if it's one dwelling that's kept aside for an emergency home for displaced people, and then go from there. But that has to happen, and it has to happen across the province, not just in BC. So thank you for bringing that up, because it is really important.
Thank you, Councillor Beal.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for the presentation. On a personal level, I love seeing the passion and joy that you bring to the work that you do. It's just, and those times when I have had an opportunity to go to, whether it be the barbecue or an event, you know, you just radiate with like I say, passion and knowledge and all of that. And I just also want to say what a wonderful testament it is to the power of collaboration and the strength that neighboring communities get from one another and from all the volunteers working together. I certainly saw that again firsthand after the terrible fire at the apartments and meeting your counterpart from Qualicum and so on. So that was great. I did have a question. With the pet trailer, when it does arrive, where will it be housed, and your truck as well? Just curious about that.
Sure, thank you very much. The pet trailer will likely in the short term end up down at Public Works, but I haven't talked to Vaughn about that in case his eyes get really big yet. And there is one parking space out here, one empty parking space out in the parking lot with the rest of the municipal vehicles where the truck will be housed. Thank you.
Councillor Patterson, and I'm going to go back to Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Aaron. I, like many around the table, have seen this project grow, and the EMO, so proud. And just the dedication and the work, and I was fortunate to pop in prior to the council meeting to get a chance to talk to some of the volunteers, and just a wealth of information. I always say that with volunteers and everything in our community, but they're enthusiastic, and that goes to you and your team and being a part of it. I'm so pleased to see the emergency plan in paper form and available and moving forward, and I can't honestly thank you enough for everything that you do. And since it might be my last time around the table, I say this heartfeltly. Thank you.
Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify, as Councillor Burton said, I said across BC, but really, when I talked about the house, I'm talking about having the house in Parksville, and that needs to be done across BC. So I just wanted to clarify that, and just again say thank you. There was one more thing too that I wanted to bring up though, and that is the website that is going to be just for the emergency plans. And that again is, I think, a really good idea, because then people aren't searching around and tired of searching, so they forget. So I think this is really good that it's going to be in one place for everyone. So thanks for that.
Anybody else? No? I have a confession to make. I've had people come up to me and say, "What does that guy do?" I said, "I have no idea. Why don't you go and ask him?" And they've come back to me and said, "Wow." So thanks again. We know that this has been a great effort, and we're leading in our. I never told you that, did I? First, okay. Well, anyway, thanks again, Aaron. It's been a pleasure. Okay, so we're moving on to reports again. Oh, I'm sorry. Is everything okay? Okay. You had me worried there for a minute. So this is Mrs. Kaler is going to give us an update on the new emergency plan format for local governments in the Mid-Island. And before I do, I need a mover and a seconder to receive the information. Moved by Councillor Salter, seconded by Councillor Beale. Mrs. Kaler, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Council. I probably can't do this justice the way Aaron did. He did touch on this in his presentation. The Mid-Island emergency planners get together very regularly, and I think they've done a great service for our Mid-Island community. I hear Aaron talking all the time about how they collaborate on daily activities. They share information. They're there to support each other when emergencies do occur, and so it makes me feel a lot of comfort to know that there's so much expertise out there that Aaron can tap into and they can tap into his. It certainly makes us more efficient as local government. So the report really today is just to receive for information the new format for the emergency plan. As Aaron touched on, we did have a plan, but it wasn't something that we could release easily because of the confidential information, a lot of staff contacts and security information. So I'm very happy to present this. It's a lot easier for us to release, and we plan on having it on our website. As Aaron mentioned, it is going to be a living document, and so the folks in the region in the emergency management group meet all the time, every week at least it seems, and they work really well together, and as things evolve and we learn from new disasters, which unfortunately Mr. Mayor, you mentioned today, that document will be updated over time, and we'll certainly be encouraging Council to keep an eye on the document online, and anything significant we'll be bringing back. Aaron has agreed, and I think it's a really good thing that we'll try to do quarterly presentations to Council with all of the great things that they're doing in the emergency program. So recommendations are to receive for information.
Any questions for Mrs. Kaler before I call the vote? Councillor Burden.
Not really a question for Mrs. Kaler, but it's a great report. Really pleased to see the piece around business continuity in there. And one quick question with regard to the spending authority piece. Do we have a policy in place now, or is this something that we need to develop?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Burden. Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Burden. We have a bylaw in place that has $100,000 spending authority. We have talked at the staff level about whether that's enough, as that can go through very quickly. But as you might know, what happens is we get a task number when there is an emergency from the provincial government, and those monies are recoverable after the emergency itself. But as Aaron mentioned, next year a lot of our agreements come up for renewal. One of the things we're hoping to do is unify the bylaws across the regional district and Qualicum Beach partners so that we all have the same, which helps us when we're working in an emergency operations center, because it will look the same no matter where we as staff are working. But it would also provide a uniform or consistent amount. Usually it's the CAO that's the director of the emergency ops center, and it allows them to access funds immediately and figure it out later with the province and getting reimbursed, essentially.
Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Worship. I echo Councillor Beale's comments. It's great to see the enthusiasm for the job. You and Scott down at the water plant are really into what you do. I'll obviously support receiving this report, but I'm wondering, maybe this is to staff, is there something we need to do as a council to endorse this, to give it more teeth or anything, or is there anything requirement for us to do this? Because there's a lot of things in there that we receive as a report and that identify things that are going to happen, but can we give it more validity by other than just receiving it? Because sometimes you just receive things and it sits on a shelf. But
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Oates. We felt some local governments are not actually bringing the report to their council. They're just putting them on their websites. And so we felt that we wanted to make sure that it was more formally introduced to council, and that council was given an opportunity to give us additional direction if that was needed. But if everything is satisfactory, that basically receiving it for information would give it that endorsement and let us know we're on the right track.
I'm going to call the vote. I have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. And Aaron, I promise you from now on, when people ask me what you do, I'll tell them. Okay? The next item we have, Council, under reports, is a consideration of a development variance permit and easement at 1 Trill Drive. I need a mover and a seconder for the 4 recommendations. Moved by Councillor Burden, seconded by Councillor Beale. Before I do that, before I ask Mr. Russell, I want to know if there's any individuals in the audience who would like to speak to this item. No? Okay, going once, going twice. I'm going to ask Mr. Russell to give us the background on this report now that I have a mover and a seconder. Mr. Russell, if you would, please.
If I may, Worship, this is a follow-up report. Since the date it was introduced to Council on August the 8th, required notice has now occurred to residents and tenants in accordance with legislation and city bylaws with respect to the development variance permit. In addition, advertisements were placed in the September 18th and September 25th editions of the Parksville Qualicum News in order to provide notice of Council's intent to enter into an easement agreement and covenant for the land adjacent to the property. If approved, the variance will authorize the rock retaining walls in their current location, as well as completion of the fence that is being under construction. The recommendations are as per the agenda.
Council, any questions for Mr. Russell, I believe? Yes, Councillor Oates.
So I take it that there was no correspondence from any of the neighbors with any concerns about the application request?
If I may, Worship, through to Councillor Oates, that is entirely correct, yes.
I'm going to call the vote. This is one we all remember. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Okay, another report, Council, from Mr. Figuera, going to give us the background on the Rath River Greenway pedestrian crossing update. Mr. Figuera, if you would, please.
If I may, Your Worship, this verbal report is to update Council on the Rath River Greenway pedestrian crossing project, including a recap of past milestones and an update on the current status. This slide you're seeing up here is the original concept. You can see it's a little bit crowded, but anyways, what that is a multi-use trail between the community park along the south edge of Nature's Trust property over to the Englishman River there, and a potential pedestrian bridge crossing at the Englishman. The Rath River Greenway project was supported by Council as supported by Council in the current capital plan is to provide a safe multi-use trail from the community park to Rath River Park, and therefore through the resort area of Parksville, east of the Orange Bridge. The 2018 capital plan has funding identified to Rath River Trail from Nervous Lane to Shelley Road along the Nature's Trust property, and the 2022 budget has the funding identified for the pedestrian crossing. Now that was pushed to 2022 because of the we needed for various reasons to delay that work. We ran into some issues in the investigation, and I'll refer to that later on here. There has been a concern for many years that the section of Highway 19A between the Orange Bridge and Resort Way is inherently dangerous for pedestrians and cyclists. This includes the narrow Orange Bridge, which is not really able to accommodate vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists safely, or as safe as it can be. Council has recognized that having a trail exclusively for pedestrians and cyclists, such as the Rath River Greenway, including a pedestrian bridge over the Englishman River to link the resort district east of the Englishman River to the community park, would resolve the safety issues. In 2015 and 2016, significant effort was employed by staff to determine the alignment of the Rath River Trail and pedestrian crossing. The focus of the effort was to determine the location of the trail east of Shelley Road and the feasibility and preliminary design of pedestrian crossing over the Englishman River to Plummer Road. And some of the components were included a preliminary alignment survey and drawing production, including the engagement of a consultant to get that piece of the work done. First Nations consultations, archaeological investigations, and we can see, let's see if I can get it to work here. There we go. These are some of the results of the archaeological investigation. This is right at the east, or on the west bank of the Englishman River. And in blue there is the proposed alignment of the Rath River Trail. So all those white dots you see in a square next to the river, those are all excavation sites looking for the remnants of any kind of habitation in past history there. You can also see on the next slide, this is a bit further west. The river, Englishman River's to the east. You can see again a square there with a number of dots. Some of them are black, and those are hits. Those are actual. I would call them seasonal habitation sites that were discovered. And First Nations archaeologists were involved in excavating those to determine where all that was. Discussions, it also included discussions with property owners east of the east abutment, discussions with the government stakeholders such as the RDN and the Ministry of Transportation and Highways. So although the archaeological investigations were promising, we were able to actually work around, you can see the in blue there, the proposed trail alignment works around that particular area. As we discovered, we were originally going right through that area, so we altered the alignment of the trail to go around those sites. So the investigations were promising in that right at the bridge site, we didn't find anything. So that was a good result there. We're able to accommodate the sites that were found. However, the limited possible east abutment locations resulted in a higher than acceptable risk to the nearby RDN San Periel aquifer. So on the east end, let's see if I can back up. Right here on the east side of the pedestrian crossing, on the east side of the river, in this area, this is where the RDN wells are for the water supply for San Periel. And it turned out that we discovered that the plume or the aquifer containing the water goes over the whole area where the pedestrian bridge would have come down. So we're not willing to risk that sort of thing in installing the bridge in that location. Also, what a consideration was terminating the pedestrian crossing on Plummer Road was not favorable and would have required additional significant investment in upgrading approximately 1.5 kilometers of Plummer Road to accommodate the multi-use trail. So the termination of the pedestrian bridge onto Plummer Road, we can't just leave it at that. We have to get people safely either along Plummer Road or into the subdivision, into the secondary roads in there. And it turns out originally we had discussions with the RDN about going through putting a trail through the property they own there with the wellheads, and it turns out that we were not able to do it in a way that we were confident that the integrity of those wells would be maintained, so that was off. So we were left with pedestrians on Plummer Road. So traveling up Plummer Road with no sidewalks or trails or anything along it is 1.5 kilometers before you get to Rath Trevor Park. So that's a significant amount of money, significant amount of upgrades that would need to happen there. Moving the bridge further south was also difficult because you have the same problem. You end up on Plummer Road, and you have to do major upgrades to that to safely get people over to Rath Trevor. And also the distance between Plummer Road and the bank of the river is too narrow further south until you get to the Orange Bridge, which is what I'm getting to. So as a result of the challenges, the alignment of the pedestrian crossing to Plummer Road was abandoned in that location. Staffs were directed to concentrate efforts on Rath River Greenway between Nermus Lane and Shelley Road, which is what we've been doing. We're working with the Mid-Vancouver Island Habitat Enhancement Society, and they've been doing monitoring of the water quality going into Nature's Trust property. So that's well underway, and we're working on that. At the same time, though, the city staff are in discussions with the ministry, MOTH, regarding improvements to Highway 19A between the Orange Bridge and Resort Way. So that would be, let's get to that. So there's the archaeological investigation. This was the preliminary alignment done for us at the location, at the original location. So this is the location that isn't going to work anymore. However, the type of design is still going to be quite similar, likely to that. It's difficult to read that, but basically, in one hand, you've got a bridge a covered bridge, and on the other hand, it's a not covered bridge. And the covered bridge, there's no piers in the river, and the other one has piers in the river. And certainly, we would favor something that doesn't have any piers in the river, which is what probably DFO would want us to do anyway. So the type of bridge and type of design is probably quite relevant there. However, the location's not going to work. Slide 5 here. So this is the piece of road that, in my opinion, we should be concentrating our efforts on in order to connect the Resort Way with the rest of Parksville safely for cyclists and pedestrians. Here's the Orange Bridge. This is the section of roadway, Highway 19A, that's within the regional district and is in control of the Ministry of Transportation and Highways. Beyond Greek Road here, the city owns the road, and you're back into the city there, and the Orange Bridge is the limit of the city of Parksville boundary there. So this piece is what we don't really have a lot of control over, and the Orange Bridge we do not own. That's a ministry-owned bridge. So what I'd like to do is obtain endorsement from council to start spending more staff time and effort on this section here in terms of getting pedestrian and cycling infrastructure that's going to bridge this gap between our resort areas and the rest of Parksville. I really think our money is best spent here, and like I say, we do have money in the budget still. We've pushed it out to 2022 for the bridge itself. I guess what I'm asking is that the council endorse me working with the Ministry of Transportation and Highways, looking for partnership possibilities in getting a complementary bridge, probably next to the Orange Bridge, that's entirely dedicated to pedestrians and cyclists, and working with them to get a separate multi-use trail off of Highway 19A on the north side that goes between Resort Drive and Pioneer, basically. So that's my report.
Thank you. Members of council, questions? Councillor Salter, Councillor Burton, and Councillor Beal, and then Councillor Patterson. You got your hand up? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I do have a couple questions. Are you talking about like a cantilevering a bridge off of the Orange, so that you're going to cantilever from one end to the other, and it's going to be basically hanging off the side of the Orange Bridge? Is that what you're talking about?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Salter, it would be very unlikely that we get approval to do that sort of thing. Bridge, the Orange Bridge right now, as far as I can tell from the ministry, there's no plans to replace that in the near future. It's a very old bridge, but I would be very surprised if they would be favorable to cantilevering anything off of it. We're talking. My recommendation would be to start with a completely separate, as we were going to do further downstream, a separate pedestrian cycling bridge.
So okay, so just to clarify, then you're not going to cantilever, but you don't want to put any posts in the river. So how are you going to span that river?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Salter, there is a design that shows no pilings required in the river. It's just a different configuration of the structure.
Okay, and then have you considered going under the bridge and then up?
In what way?
Under the Orange Bridge and then up.
Like a tunnel, or?
No, a bridge. So a bridge under the bridge, right? So.
Oh, okay.
On your bikes and then come up.
It's really the Orange Bridge itself. The bottom of the Orange Bridge, when that river is running heavy in the wintertime, there's not much clearance between the bottom of that river and the debris that's running. I think anything we would put in that zone, I think would get washed out. So I don't think DFO would be amicable to putting anything under there.
Okay. So so the only reason I'm asking is you're talking about an aquifer that's really close to that riverbank where you were considering originally putting that bridge. So I'm just thinking of suggestions.
Sure.
Yeah.
Councillor Burton.
You referred to some meetings with the Ministry of Highways with regard to that strip. I attended those meetings. I've seen the report, but I haven't seen any indication that they're going to do anything with it. Have you got any information on their timeline in terms of, that whole piece of highway is with Plummer Road coming in and across the street. It's getting to be really congested in there. I think they were proposing a light.
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Burton. Timelines, yeah, it's difficult to get timelines out of them. I know they want to do there's some thought to doing some of those improvements in the very near future. my discussions with them will be, they've been pretty favorable so far, but I think I'm going to need to concentrate a little bit more with the MOTH staff in terms of coming up with a potential partnership. And I'm hoping that if they see that there's a partnership there and the possibilities of this trail, that they'll hopefully consider accelerating their efforts a little bit through there. There are different configurations, as you saw at the meetings, that they were working with, and some which they're favoring over others. But basically, they're looking at improving the safety through there by potentially installing an intersection, as you referred to. What I want to make sure that they do is when they do any kind of upgrades, that they're looking towards an ultimate plan to have us have a safe cycling and pedestrian infrastructure included in whatever they do, so that they don't do something that's going to kind of negate the possibility for us to be able to come in there and get something in. So at this point, I would just say I would like some endorsement just to continue to work with them and try to find a solution so that our pedestrians and cyclist safety is improved in that section.
Yeah, it's a great project. I think it's something that's really going to benefit both our residents and, of course, the tourists that come through, and we want to get them into town. So I'll certainly support your request going forward.
Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Worship. And yes, I would very much like to endorse this. I think it just makes a lot of sense, quite frankly. Using a parallel path to something that's already in place, again, as I say, makes a lot of sense. There's really good flow. When people do come across, they use Pioneer Crescent or the highway right now. Coming down, I know of many neighbors in the Saint-Péryel area who walk up into town and take that route. Furthermore, from Shelley Road going west, there's sidewalk all along on the one side, which is very nice. And in fact, going back perhaps 20 years now, I don't know if it was that long ago, but at a council meeting here when Julia McDonald, Barry Johnson, Mr. Banks were here and others. Actually, I don't think it was at this building. It was at the older City Hall over where Coors is now. That's right. It was brought up to sort of consider Pioneer Crescent as a potential, as a link between the parks, and to maybe eventually put a few shade trees on the south side just to beautify it a little bit. But I also think it has an added benefit in that it is adjacent to businesses, many of which are restaurants down at that end. So again, it's nice to see something that can link that possibility of tourists walking or cycling into town and accessing some of our local businesses, or perhaps turning off then down Shelley Road, which again, approximately half of Shelley Road between Turner down to the bottom of the hill has sidewalk on one side. So again, it's a very nice link down to the existing greenway pathway or into Nature's Trust land, which is open for the public to explore. So anyway, I absolutely want to support it. Right now, you can get from the log cabin store down to just about Plummer Road fairly safely. It's so wide on the side, but that other bit is absolutely treacherous. So anything that we can do to support your efforts with the Ministry of Transportation, I would absolutely like to do.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you for your presentation. So moving forward, we can endorse you. I'm really optimistic that in future years we will have a greenway all the way through towards Rath Trevor. But in the time frame, you haven't really asked for any funding or anything, just the approval at this point in time to continue negotiation and conversation?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Patterson. At this time, there's money for the other portion. west of Shelley Road. Yep. For this portion, the money that was identified for the bridge was pushed to 2022. So what I propose to do, given support from council, what I would do is bring forward in the fall budgeting process to accelerate some of that money so I can get a conceptual plan done in partnership with Ministry of Transportation and Highways, something that I can show council and something that the ministry staff can show their superiors, and if we can get on the same page, then maybe we'll have something.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Worship. Just for clarity, can we go back to the very first slide? Yeah, okay. So is the proposed greenway going to be from point number 1 there at Nerbus Lane down to number 10 at Shelley Road, and then use the road network to get you up to the other part that you're proposing? Is that what I'm understanding?
If I may, Your Worship.
This piece, that's everything that's east of or south of Shelley Road is not going to be done.
If I may, Your Worship, through to count the councillor. Councillor Oates. Sorry. Yeah, with the greenway would be between Nerbus Lane and Shelley. That would get us to this park property that the city had purchased. That's one destination. And the other destination would be coming up Shelley Road. So there would be proposed improvements up to get people to Pioneer, or probably most likely Pioneer, and then they can come down Pioneer to the bridge. You can't see it, unfortunately. It's behind the picture there. But it would be Shelley Road improvements to Pioneer, and then Pioneer over to the potential pedestrian crossing.
Thank you for bringing this forward. I know that this was something that this council was very motivated to see happen. Understand the frustrations working with the different orders of government and how to get the different permits. We weren't able to accomplish it. But I would certainly support anything that you would require to further this initiative. I think this is something that the public will be very happy to see happen. You know, one of the complaints is that the trail doesn't go far enough, and you know, maybe we could talk in the future about making a big circle. But certainly, thank you very much for everything you've done, and whatever you need for endorsement there, I'd be happy to support. If I don't know if we require a motion or just from what you're hearing here tonight is good enough. So I'm not sure. Staff.
Councillor Powell, Councillor Salter, and then Councillor Patter.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to make a motion that council endorse the plan that Director of Engineering Vaughn Figuera has to go forward with the proposed plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I do have another question.
Is this on the motion?
Yeah, it's on the motion. It's on the whole thing we're talking about right now. So you spoke about the First Nations hits that were by the greenway there. And so I'm just confirming, I see those little white dots with the little black hits, but they're right on that trail. So what has occurred there? Are those not the same things, or? So where your little blue thing with the red underneath, right, on your trail, there's those white squares, the little black hits in the middle on some of them. And so my question is, has that been addressed? Because you said those were hits. So my question is, where's the First Nations in this?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Salter, all the hits that were found were identified and located, and as a result of moving this bridge, that trail won't be there.
So you're not going to have where this trail is here?
that trail, right, will not be needed. The future of that park there is likely going to be a public process and what the public wants to see there. The alignment that's shown there was preliminary alignment, and we had moved it in anticipation that we could put the bridge there. This was, it's good you noticed that this is the draft. We actually moved that blue alignment to miss all that, but then once we found out the situation with the other side of the bridge and the sensitivity, then this whole alignment through this park here will be scrapped.
Okay.
In the future.
And the First Nations are okay with that?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
What I might add, too, before I call the vote, is that the First Nations, we've had preliminary discussions with regards to what might be along that trail at some point in time in terms of an interpretive center. So I can say that from my perspective, there's a great deal of potential and there's a great deal of support on both sides of the river for this project. So on that note, unless there's any other questions, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. So you're going to stay in place, Mr. Figuera, or are you going back to your seat? Okay, we'll give you a chance to get back. You have to start all over again. So I need a mover and a seconder for the background, or for the Shelley Road Highway 19A signalized intersection. Moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Powell. Mr. Figuera, the background on this particular issue, which I know has been planned a long time ago.
If I may, Your Worship, before Council is a report for the tender award of the Shelley Road Highway 19A signalized intersection upgrade. On August 20th, 2018, the City issued a tender call for the Shelley Road Highway 19A signalized intersection upgrade to retain contractor services for the construction of the works. Tender packages were submitted by 3 consultants. Bids were opened on September the 14th. All proposals were complete and responsive with no errors. Capcan Civil Limited were the lowest bid at $382,452. Staff do request an additional $137,000 to the capital budget to complete the works. The additional funding will come from ICBC grants. We were able to get a grant to offset some of that cost, and there's a developer contribution, and DCC cost recoveries will cover the additional cost, and the recommendations are as per the report.
Questions for Mr. Figuera? Councillor Burton.
So the only money coming out of general revenue is the $780? Is that right? City contribution of $780? Or are we saving $780? What's that city contribution? Oh, it's sorry. There's $35.50 in the budget, or needed, and the $27.70 is what's available. Where's the $780 coming from?
Let me see here. Sorry, could you show me where that is? Oh, there. Okay. Variance 780. So what it is all additional costs will be covered by the either the grant from ICBC, the developer contribution, or DCCs. The shortfall, the budget shortfall, will all come from those 3 sources.
Well, I'm seeing a city contribution. It's a moot point. It's not a lot of money. I'm just trying to understand what that city contribution is.
The $780.
$780.
And I'll apologize in advance.
Yeah, I'm looking at page 70. Yeah. Let's see. Required budget. I'm not able to answer that. I'd have to talk to Lucky, to our Director of Finance, to figure out where that is. But the total funding for this project is additional funding needed is going to be covered from grant monies, DCC, or developer contribution.
Another follow-up?
So there's no budget amendment required in order to complete?
Correct. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, there's an increase in the budget, and the increase is going to be funded from three sources. The grant monies from ICBC, DCCs, and developer contribution. So the budget needs to be increased by $137,000.
Okay.
And it's covered.
Councillor Burton?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Beal?
Thank you. Just to clarify, as I understand it, it's just that we need to have that listed in the budget to, in fact, reflect the actual cost, but there's no additional monies needed. They're all accounted for. Is that correct?
The additional monies are accounted for in that we'll be drawing on our DCCs a little bit more, but we did get grant money and developer contribution to cover the rest of it. So no general revenue is needed.
Yeah. No, I was just overhearing someone suggest that we didn't need to amend the budget, but I think that it's still, this is one of these housekeeping type of items, correct?
Yes.
And that it needs to be there correctly in the line, exactly.
The money is there. We just need to make sure that we alter the budget number for that.
Councillor Oud.
Okay. I think that from what I've read here, this is going to cost us $780 over and above what it cost us when it originally came in. The overall project has gone up in budget by $137,000. Of that $137, all but $780 is going to be recovered from what's listed there on page 70 of the thing of our agenda. The city's prior contribution was $27.70, and now they need $35.50, so it's going to be $780. Bottom line is we're not taking the money from any future year's budgets or from any other fund or anything other than the $780, and we got $9,354 left in council contingency, just saying.
On that note, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Don't go away, Mr. Figuera.
Right.
I need a mover and a seconder for the 5 recommendations on the award of professional design services for the detailed design of Pym Street upgrade and Forsyth Avenue. I have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Beal. Mr. Figuera, once again, give us the background on this issue, please.
Before council is a report to award the professional design services for the detailed design of Pym Street upgrade and Forsyth Avenue upgrade. During the scope development process, staff determined it's beneficial to incorporate the design of complementary projects into the scope of the work for the design services for the Pym Street project. Several complementary projects were identified, including the design of Forsyth Avenue, storm sewer, and water main upgrade, as well as the storm drainage capacity analysis on Pym Street, Camas Way, and Blanken Avenue. Because the Forsyth Avenue upgrades are not scheduled until 2020, adding Forsyth Avenue design work and capacity analysis to the Pym project would require a budget amendment to bring the allocated funding forward to the 2018 budget. The city conducted an SOQ process according to our purchasing policy, and 12 consultants responded and were evaluated. The top-rated consultant was Coors & Associates Limited. As far as this is concerned, the 2018 funding for the Pym Street upgrade projects available per the summary. In the report, there is sufficient budget available in the 2018 to complete Pym Street upgrade as well as Forsyth Avenue upgrades. However, the surplus budget for the Pym Street upgrade cannot be used to fund the separate capital project. Therefore, staff's requesting a budget amendment to the relocation, budget amendment to relocate the appropriate funding. The recommendations are as per the report.
For Mr. Figuera from members of council. Seeing no questions, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. You'll notice in the audience tonight, before I introduce this next item, you've got people sitting there wearing green shirts, and they've been very prevalent in this particular exercise. This is the single-use checkout bag reduction program. I need a mover and a seconder for the 4 recommendations. Moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Burden. Mrs. Tardif, would you please give us the background on this issue, single-use checkout bag reduction program?
Thank you, Your Worship. In September 2017, Council directed staff to undertake public consultation regarding a citywide ban on single-use checkout plastic bags. An online survey was conducted in late 2017 with responses from 405 Parksville residents and businesses and 593 results in total. The survey results were presented to Council in January of this year. Earlier in the year, Council directed staff to investigate options for a ban on single-use plastic bags within the city. It was prudent to wait until there was a decision by the BC Supreme Court, which in June ruled in favor of the City of Victoria and dismissed the challenge to Victoria's checkout bag regulation bylaw. This report provides the details of the city's proposed bylaw and an education and awareness campaign. The suggested implementation date of March 1st, 2019 would provide businesses reasonable time to adjust and plan for the change to their businesses. Recommendations are as per the report.
Are there any questions from members of Council for Mrs. Tardif or comments that people wish to make? Councillor Beal, Burden, and Salter first.
Thank you very much. I'd like to support this, and just a comment, as most people know here, we already have retailers that do not provide the single-use bags at checkout, but I was in one of the local building supplies stores not long ago, and I had my bag with me, and I thought it was very telling that the clerk mentioned right away, we've just all become so used to bringing our bags with we, haven't we? And also to add that for any people who do shop at some of the bigger box stores, again, they do not provide them. And in fact, it seems to be a very handy way for them to rid themselves of some of the cardboard boxes that they would acquire when they get their merchandise. So those all travel out of the stores and do get recycled. So I'm pleased to see this come before us, and there are certainly many communities that are looking into this now, and also on the federal level looking at the whole issue of plastics and microplastics and the impact on the water and the environment. So, and we have alternatives, so I'd like to support this.
Councillor Burden.
I'd like to support it too, but I'd like to see if we can't put some time between enacting this and starting to charge fines. I note that there's a $150 fine for the provision of a single-use plastic bag, and I'd really rather we use a carrot approach rather than a stick. And I'm wondering if we can amend it to so that the penalty wouldn't be imposed until after the review in March of 2020.
I'd just like to ask a question. I'm not necessarily opposed to the amendment. I'm just wondering if you could explain a little further. And beforehand, I was very interested to note when I was in Victoria and did a bit of shopping, and there were places, because businesses may use up their supply of plastic bags that they have, even up to a certain time. And it was nice to see that people had notices literally taped to their checkout counters so that it explained that to people, so there was an implementation date, but there was still an additional date for people to use up their inventory and the like. But perhaps you could explain a little more what you envision with a lag or how that would work.
I think we're going to embark on an education process, And in order to preserve goodwill between the various retail outlets and their customers, I think it would be better if we really enhanced the educational process and, as I said, use more of a carrot rather than a stick to enforce, so that the merchant isn't stuck saying to the customer, I'm not allowed to give you a plastic bag. We have a number of tourists that come to our community who aren't going to be familiar with our new rules and regulations, and I'm just concerned that we might be building ill will instead of goodwill, which is obviously what this is intended to do. And so to make sure that the goodwill and what we are trying to do is a positive thing, I'm asking that we not start fining people until after the review.
On that eloquent, Councillor Patterson, on that eloquent speech, that's over to you.
Thank you. And did we need to do an amendment? Oh. As Councillor Burden has stated, I, as a small business person, went to a compostable bag, but I had to still educate my customers, and that because it is considerably thinner. We also changed over in our garbage bags and that too, so that they're not just a single use. So I really do believe that an education piece and working in conjunction to a degree with even our RDN as well for pickup of compostable kind of issues and everything, and working again with a little bit more of the composting aspect of things would be beneficial.
Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to say, I think that's common sense, you know, Councillor Burden and Councillor Patterson. One thing I did want to mention, though, is that although plastic bags, single-use plastic bags, they are a problem. They're being pulled out of whales that they find up on the beach. But there's more than just plastic bags. So I'm hoping this is just the beginning, because plastic bottles are a huge issue. Plastic clothing, you know, you get the micro straws, microplastics, plastic tools, milk containers. You know, it just look around you. We've got plastic. It's so permeated into our everyday lives that hopefully this is just the beginning. But certainly the compostable bags, I'm seeing a lot of that in our community. Several businesses are using them now, and they do compost down because I've got to use them when they're full of holes.
Okay, so I'm going to call the vote on Councillor Burden's motion. One question, one more question.
Thank you. I would have a question of staff. Where we do have the ability to impose a fine, is it typical or obligatory to fine immediately? I just wonder if staff could speak about that from a bylaw perspective.
Fine on a first offense. It is the discretion of the bylaw officers, but our approach is always compliance first before enforcement. And so the officers will work usually with somebody and discuss the issue. If they still aren't seeing any understanding, they'll move to a verbal or to a warning. So they do the verbal first, then a written warning, and then at that point they would consider issuing tickets if there's still a reluctance or an unwillingness to comply. The only time that they would ever really issue tickets right away is for traffic offenses. Almost every other offense, I would say, it would be rare for them to ticket first. That's kind of their focus is more on the compliance.
Okay, we have a motion from Councillor Oates. You have a comment?
Yeah, I just want to understand exactly what the amendment is. What is the amendment?
To postpone the date.
The amendment is to postpone the the imposition of fines for providing bags until after the review in March of 2020 to allow for a longer education period.
Okay, that's what I was concerned about. So we're going to be asked to extend the education period by over a year with a $3,500 budget. How are we going to do that?
Can staff answer that?
If I may, Your Worship, I'm not sure I can answer that. $3,500, when I looked at the budget, was really for materials just to get us through the next 6 months. And it really is about educating the businesses, residents to an extent, but most of that money is for educating businesses. There'll be a mail out with the business license renewals in December. There'll be some advertising that will be necessary. If we're looking at extending that period, then probably there would be a need for some more dollars.
Councillor Oates.
I'm concerned about the amount of money when you add the educational component to that period there. No issue whatsoever with extending it to 2020. I'm wondering if we couldn't do that by making an amendment under item 6 of the actual proposed bylaw to say that, you just say something there that's effective March 1st, 2020, or whatever the date is, 2020, and if that would satisfy it.
Councillor Burton, would that satisfy you?
Yep. I just don't want to see people being fined and creating ill will prior to having an opportunity to really get this thing rolling.
So Your Worship, then what I would suggest is that there is the motion here that the number 2 of the thing there, bylaw be that the single-use provisional bylaw, blah blah blah, as amended to the transfer to the statutory process. That will do it, and the amendment being that the effective date is March 1st, or whatever the date is in 2020. I'm
you okay with
yes,
that?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll move that if that's what needs to be done. Make the minutes look good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what we will do is we will reference the Section 6 penalty coming into effect on March 1st, 2020, and then in the bylaw section, we'll be reading that bylaw as amended. So it will be changed to reflect the penalty not being enforced until 1 year later.
Okay, everybody happy? You're not happy?
Of course. Oh, come on, Mary. God, my God. Be happy.
Councillor Beal, one more time.
Again, I'm just, now I need to be clear on this amendment, but also going back to the question of education at a certain point, I think when bylaw goes around to individual, in this case, individual retailers, that's maybe where that education piece is coming in because it's specific. But are we now asking that this whole bylaw not take effect in 2020? No, it's just a fine period. Okay, thank you very much.
On that note, I'm going to call the vote. I have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thanks very much. Next report, Council, we have is the fall and the 2018 grant and aid applications. And I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Beal. So I'm going to ask Councillors Powell and Beal to report on the report.
Thank you, Your Worship. And so when we came to the report, there was only 5 that applied for the grant and aid. 3 were disqualified for different reasons, and so we gave the Haven Society what they asked for was $1,630, and Mount Aerosmith Pipe Band, we gave them the full $600, and we still saved $270.
Okay, I have a mover and a seconder. Unless there's no questions, I'm going to call the vote. Oh, it's Councillor Salter. You have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what was it that the Volleyball BC were not, why were they not in the
Who wants to answer that?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. One of the requirements is that the grant cannot be for an event that has already taken place, and in this case, it was for an event that had already taken place.
And then what about the Oceanside Volunteer Association?
Councillor Beal?
The event was held in Qualicum, not Parksville.
And the volunteers are all from Qualicum?
Just to add to that, during discussion, we did express a desire that in a letter that goes out to the organizations that there was some explanation, and in that particular case the recommendation would be, or suggestion was, that they apply to the RDN for a grant because it would be a better fit with what they had put forward.
Okay, on that note, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, bylaws, 3 readings. City of Parksville Single-Use Checkout Bag Reduction Program, bylaw 2018, number 1549. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. Moved by Councillor, pardon me? As amended. As amended. Good point. Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Burton. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. 3rd reading, Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2018, number 201117. This is the Molliette Street North. Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Burton. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. And the 5-year financial plan amendment 2018 to 2022, number 1544.1. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Beal. All those in favor? Opposed? You're in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Since this is our last council meeting before we move into special business, what's going on? Oh, the financial plan bylaw 2018. I did the 2022. I didn't do the 1548. Okay. All those in favor? I have a mover and a seconder for the both. Yeah. Okay.
I'll second.
That's passed. Let's go. Okay, so it's the last council meeting. As Neil Sedaka once wrote, breaking up is hard to do. So I'm going to start on my right with Councillor Beal, and I'm going to go around the table, and I'm going to end with Councillor Powell, who's one of the longest serving members on this council. Councillor Beal.
Well, thank you, Worship. I must say it has been an amazing experience being here, and I really thank everyone who has helped get me here. I have learned so much, and I truly want to thank everything and everyone who has helped me with my learning journey. And first of all, I would like to thank fellow members of council and the mayor. I have learned something from everyone here at the table, and I really value the opportunity and the discussions that we've had here. I really want to thank the community members, the individuals out in the community, and the many amazing, to borrow a word from Councillor Patterson, but absolutely amazing and dedicated community organizations that work so hard, work tirelessly to help our community, Parksville, be the best that it can be. And whether it be in the area of social services, essential services like the library, the arts, sports, and other organizations, it really is so fantastic to meet this huge variety of people who go above and beyond to do so much for the community. And even though we do celebrate and everything, so much of what they do goes unheralded. And so I really want to thank you. I've learned so much again from all of you as to what goes on in the community. And finally, I would really like to offer sincere thanks to staff, the staff that is here and the staff that isn't here, because you have helped me so much. And thank you for your endless patience when I come knocking at the door or on the phone, or could you please send me an email with this question or that question. So thank you very much to staff. And that's it. That's all.
Councillor Salter.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would like to say the same thing. Thank you. There's been lots of staff who have helped, who have created motions for me and done some great traveling stuff when we go away, because I do get lost. But so it's been a lot of help. I'd like to say it's been a real privilege for me to serve the residents in the city. And I want to say I really appreciate all of the input, all of the letters, all of the emails that I've had, the phone calls, the communication. There are so many people who really care about this community, residents that care about the community. And I know that there's been divisive issues, but what that tells me is that people are really engaged because of that division. There's a lot of engagement there, regardless of where you are on the issue. It's healthy. It's really healthy that you're involved. So I just really want to thank people for helping me. Also, I have had, I don't know if council know this, but I've actually had community members create motions for me, and I've read them out here, so some of them have passed. So I just want to say you've been great. It's been a great community. I'm really glad that you have been involved in directing the community. I think if I were to say the best thing that's happened for me personally in 4 years is acquiring Ermiskin, which is being called the wetlands now, and I'm sure it'll get a name at some point, but I think that was a really great, for me it was a really great high point while I sat here over the past 4 years. So thank you all.
Councillor Burton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's only been 2 years. I joined late, but I joined a really good team, and I think the most striking thing for me was that even when we disagreed, we always got along together, and it's been a very cohesive unit that is that's worked together to further the aims of the city. I too thank staff and the people that participated from the community. I've been an observer of this process for a really long time. I know things that probably none of you know, from hanging around and coming to council meetings over the last, I'm going to say, almost 20 years. It's different when you're in this chair, and I've really enjoyed it, and we'll see what October 20th brings, but special thanks to the staff that have helped me along the way, and special thanks for everybody for welcoming me, and I just really appreciate the fact that, like I say, with differences, we're all, when I look around at some of the other communities, it hasn't always been the way, and this one's pretty darn good.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've served and been lucky to serve 10 years as a councillor here in Parksville, and I am honored. I've always said that I lead a lot with emotion, and I care great deally about this community, and I do say it's amazing, and I'm so very fortunate that I live here, work here, play here, raise kids here. Looking around this community, there's often two sides to a story, or sometimes there's three or more. There's 7 of us on council, and no, we don't always agree, and there's always different views and different perspectives, and I'm really, really fortunate to be able to say that there's not often that there's so many more different sides and viewpoints, and I welcome that, and I'm honored to be at this table with staff and with my fellow councillors and mayor. We had a very tough year. I won't deny that by any stretch of the imagination. Like Councillor Salter said, we've done some amazing work, which sometimes doesn't get highlighted enough. The wetlands, you had a presentation tonight with the EMO, and that's amazing. And our residents are truly, truly amazing. The amount of volunteerism that goes on in this community is unparalleled. I do get the opportunity to travel in Alberta and visit family and friends, and have taken a lot of side trips to see different development and aquifers and things in the past, just so that I know when I get back to this table to ask some of the different questions, and that's to see where we are and where we're going. I look forward to the next 4 years. I do hope to be in a chair, and I do hope to be able to pick up a phone and have a conversation, and that with those of us that are leaving for other things. But knowing that you'll be in this area, and that I thank you as well. And again, I thank staff greatly for all the extra hours that they put in, and for the community that elected me here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oates.
Well, I certainly want to, I echo everything that everybody has said this far, but I want to thank the people of Parksville for giving me the opportunity to serve here. You know, lots of people want to be on council, but, you know, not often you get those people that want to serve on council. We've been fortunate that we've had a council that not only wanted to be on council, but they wanted to serve on council, and I think we've done very well together. And I want to thank the taxpayers and the people that have supported to put us here, and the number of delegations that came, and the common denominator that's in this community about the people that care. We may have different roads we think we need to get there, but we certainly all have a common denominator that people really care, and it's humbling and it's inspiring. And today is a sad day for me. You know, I didn't realize it was our last council meeting, and Mark mentioned it to me earlier today. It's the last council meeting. I thought, wow, you know, I've served on a lot of boards in a lot of different jurisdictions, and I can tell you that this is one of the best boards that I've ever served on. We've had some pretty good debates, but I've never ever doubted the level of commitment that anybody on this council has had. I'm pretty proud of what we've done. I'm proud of the water plant coming to fruition very soon. I'm proud of the work that we've done with respect to emergency management. I'm proud of the purchase of the 93-acre wetlands up there. I think that's something that that the people of Parksville will get to enjoy for a long time. And I want to tell you, my fellow councillors, that I have a lot of respect for you, an awful lot of respect for you. You've earned my respect. I respected you as a councillor at the position, but each of you have earned my respect as a person, and I'm thankful for having the opportunity to serve with you. The staff here are amazing. We had an example of that earlier tonight when Aaron came and Councillor Beal mentioned the enthusiasm that he had. It wasn't mentioned earlier, but we had a tour last week of the water plant, and we went down there. And the enthusiasm by the staff, by Scott, about this new water plant, and you could see it in people down there, the excitement about it, and how they were proud to work for the city of Parksville. And I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be a part of that in some small way. And I really hope that I get to continue to contribute at this table. But if not, I will find other ways to contribute. This is a great city to live in, and I'm very, very fortunate and humbled to have the opportunity to serve.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship. First, I'd like to thank the people of Parksville for putting their trust in me to represent them in their community. It's been both challenging and rewarding. One of my biggest lessons is there's no black and white decisions, and not everyone will be happy with those decisions. I also learned that there were allies where I least expected, and even if we were from opposing sides of the political spectrum, we could reach common ground. I learned that I could and have become friends with other council members who did not have the same ideology as I had, and that we're not that much different. I learned that the most difficult decisions were the ones that involved weighing the good of the community against some constituents who were against the decision that council was making, and how important it is to stand by those decisions. I have to admit that during the last 4 years, I've been unable to reach out to fellow councillors on a continual basis. This is my failure, and is one of the many reasons I decided not to run again. I believe that I have lost my effectiveness to serve the people of Parksville. I'm proud of my time on council, and I believe I've acted with honor and integrity throughout my 13 years in this position. I would like to offer my thanks and gratitude to the citizens of Parksville for having put their faith in me. Thank you.
Well, I agree with what everybody has said, and I'll try to keep my comments very, very short. First of all, it's been an honor and a privilege for me. I'm thinking about it more and more as the days go by and as the end comes near. It's been 16 years that I've devoted myself to making Parksville, I hope, a better place. The honor and the privilege is awesome for me, to the voters of Parksville who have seen fit to keep re-electing me over this period of time. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about is staff. Parksville has a great staff who work hard, who are dedicated, very knowledgeable, and do their job to perfection in that they bring forward to us the information that we need to make a decision. The information is professional, it's well thought out, it's well researched, and it's vitally important to the city of Parksville. Next, the councillors. I admire every one of you. You're courageous and you're dedicated, and your commitment to Parksville has been remarkable. And I've always been very, very proud to come to work and to come to council meetings or any other type of meeting with you, because I know that your hearts are in it for the right reasons, and you want to see the betterment of Parksville. I have ridden on the shoulders of our strategic partners over the years. The business community, who are innovative and creative and hardworking and dynamic. The Tourism Association, who do a fabulous job in marketing our city, not only our city, but the whole area of Oceanside. The Downtown Business Association, and the Construction Association, who are such a vital part of our community. I once, early on, I remember having a meeting with the Construction Association, and when you look at the expertise that's in that association, everything from a plumber and an electrician and a carpenter and a top-notch, I forget what the title is, to a finishing carpenter and these sort of things. We need that in our community, and it's so vital. And they're here, and they all do great work. So on that note, I want to thank you all. I want to wish you all well. I'm going to be much more enjoyed by my grandkids and my kids, who have for some time now been at me to get out of the business. And I've got a bucket list. I achieved my first bucket list this summer when I went to the Calgary Stampede. I'd never been to the Calgary Stampede, so I'm looking forward to finishing off a lot more of these bucket lists. So thank you all very much. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you. So on that note, I'm going to make a motion. I need a mover and a seconder to move into special business pursuant to Section 91E of the Community Charter. Council proceed to a closed meeting. I'm Councillor Salter and Councillor Burden. We're going to be having that meeting in another room, by the way, folks. Yeah. The boardroom.